You're listening to Redefining Balance for Working Moms podcast, episode 177. And today we're talking about setting limits to achieve your goals. Welcome to Redefining Balance for Working Moms podcast, where we believe life balance is possible. Yes, even for you. You might just have to redefine what it looks like for yourself. I'm your host, fellow working mom, and founder of Your Life Rocks, Jenny Stemmerman. Each week, I'll bring you practical, real-life tips to help you focus on the things that matter most in life and be the best version of yourself in every area that God has called you to. Ready to redefine what balance looks like for you in your life? Let's go. This episode is brought to you by Life Balance Membership. Join the group of women who are redefining what balance looks like in their life by implementing the 3 pillars to balance. Number 1, growing in your faith and relationship with God. Number 2, being in community. And number 3, learning the systems that actually work for working moms looking to create more balance in their lives. The membership contains courses to help you define and create balance for yourself through routines, setting priorities, and time management. Plus, you get resources to grow in all 8 areas of life. We're talking about your faith, marriage, parenting, career, home, health, finances, and friendship. Life Balance members also receive bonus content from this podcast, as well as added support in a private membership-only group. And once a month, we have group coaching to help walk you through whatever situations are getting in your way so you can really live your best life possible. You can learn more by going to lifebalancemembership.com or upgrade right inside the Your Life Rocks app. When you start, you'll receive a free 7-day trial where you can take our first course called Clearing the Chaos. It's a 7-day audio course with a little mini lesson each and every single day to give you instant relief to the chaos that surrounds you and helping you take those first steps in creating more balance in your life. Life Balance Membership has helped so many working moms just like you. And I am excited to help support you as you go on your journey of creating more balance for yourself. And part of that is through this podcast. Now, if this is your first time catching the show, welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. My name is Jenny Stemmerman, the founder of Your Life Rocks, which is a company all about helping to support working moms in everything that you are called to be. Now, if you're a regular listener, then you might have taken a double take. Yep, after 3 years, this show has a new name, a new look and feel. Your Life Rocks has been expanding into other territories to support working moms of faith, including our new app, Life Balance Membership, Setting Goals, and God's Will Bible Study, and there are more to come in the next few months. So it kind of felt like a good time to restructure a few things under the umbrella of Your Life Rocks. Don't worry, the show is still full of wisdom from our guest experts, covering all 8 areas of life, and helping you grow with motivation and practical tips to put it all together. And today's episode is one that really applies to all areas of your life. We're going to be talking about limits. Now, on a personal level, I really do not like limits. It's not gel well with my personality. I naturally like to push the limits a little bit. Sometimes I don't like to be constrained by limits. But the other day, God put this topic on my heart and it began to really unfold and feel like it was something that needed to be shared. Now, if you are a Life Balance member already, there is a podcast bonus worksheet for you for this episode, and it's available inside the membership community. So let's talk a little bit about limits and why this is something that we should be talking about. And I say limits using air quotes because it is, it's one of those things that, like I said, I don't necessarily like the word limits. Okay, so this is how this topic came to mind. I was driving to the office and I just merged from one freeway onto another, and there was a car that came up fast behind me and was pushing me to go faster. I get so frustrated by this kind of stuff. I'm not the best driver and I don't turn into the best person when I get behind the wheel. But there was a big truck in the fast lane. He had moved over for the merging traffic and we were in the slow lane. And it was obvious that the car behind me wanted to get past the truck, and I totally get it. So with this car behind me, I felt like I needed to go faster, and I found myself going faster than I really wanted to go on the freeway. And I found myself saying to myself, don't let them push you. You are in front of them and you can set the limit of speed in which you will not exceed. So I set my cruise control and ignored them, ignored the car behind me because I was the one who was setting the limit. Now, as I was having this conversation with myself and driving down the road, I felt the Spirit point out that setting the limit was what was best for me, and I couldn't help but feel prompted of the Spirit to examine where else in my life I needed to set limits. Setting limits for what would be the best for me in the long term. Now, like I said before, I don't like limits. I just don't. But setting limits on others pushing me, I could do that. In fact, I highly agree with that. But as I began thinking more about this, I realized it wasn't about setting limits for others. It was about setting limits for myself. Setting limits for others is creating boundaries. And we've talked a lot about creating boundaries on this podcast, creating boundaries at work, creating boundaries at home, creating boundaries for your own self-care. But this is different. Limits for ourselves are more about our virtues, more about creating our own character and becoming who we are called to be. When we set limits for ourselves, it's about creating discipline for ourselves in our own actions. When I set the cruise control on my car, it wasn't setting a limit for how much the other driver could push me. It was me setting a limit on how fast I was willing to drive. It was more about my behavior than theirs. It was more about me taking personal accountability over my life than going along with my outside influences. It's more about that internal influence that I'm having on myself. So why is this important, and how does it even relate to creating balance in our lives? After all, that's what this whole show is about. The show is not about how to be a better driver, thank goodness, because I'm not the best driver myself. But it did get me thinking about my goals and the things that are keeping me from my goals, things that are keeping me from where I want to go in my life and the intentions that I have set. Those desires that of the direction I want my life to go in. And a lot of time it comes down to discipline and behaviors that have a negative result on my goals and my intentions. The things that are like the self-sabotaging nature that we all have in keeping us from where we ultimately want to go. Here's an example. I might intend to clean the house for 20 minutes at night, but some behaviors, they just might get in my way. Bad habits get in my way from actually doing what it is that I said I wanted to do. I also might just lack the discipline to just do it. Sometimes we just give into our flesh of just being like, I'm tired and I want to sit there. And sometimes we need to sit there. We need to be able to take that rest. But looking at what those things are, those things that I want to do, the things that are getting in my way, I need to set limits for myself, like limiting how many excuses I can use, limiting how many minutes I can procrastinate scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, or limiting the things I do between stepping in my front door after work to setting the timer for 20 minutes to clean the house. Because the more things that I have in between those two things, the more likely I am to find more excuses or more things getting in my way. Now, setting limits might not sound fun. If you're like me, they probably don't. But I'll tell you, what does sound fun is actually reaching my goals, actually doing the things that I say to myself that I'm going to do. That sounds fun. Feeling good about following through, that's something I can get behind. And me wanting to get behind that and experience that in my life absolutely trumps any negative feelings I have about setting limits, because we get to set our own limits. It's not about someone else setting these limits for us. It's us deciding what works best for ourselves and our lives, not what someone else is saying for us. We get to set that. So the limits that I set for my life might be different than the limits that you set for your life, and that is okay. It's knowing ourselves well enough to know what works for us and what's not going to work for us. But a life without those personal limits that we're setting for ourselves can be set up for disaster. Okay. So I have an exercise to help you apply this to your life, because I don't want you hearing this message and being like, yeah, that sounds great. And then you leave and you're like, didn't necessarily apply it. We have to be applying things that we're learning to our lives, things that we are hearing that we're like, yes, I can get behind that. If we don't apply it, it's just a nice little message that we heard. Okay, so here's the exercise. I want you to grab your notebook. And if you don't have a notebook, grab a blank piece of paper, scratch note, like whatever you find that have paper. And if you're not a paper person, open up a Word doc or a Google Doc and just type away. I want you to think first about the things in your life that you have set intentions for, the things that you have dreamed about, the things that you have prayed about, the goals that you have set for yourself. Write them all out. Now, if you're like me, I have a lot of of short-term goals. I have a lot of long-term goals. I have a lot of they're not necessarily goals, but they're dreams or intentions or directions that I want my life to go in, that maybe someone could say they're like 5-10-year goals, but they're really more of just the things I'm praying for. Like they're the dreams that I'm praying for. I don't necessarily have a strong action plan on how I'm going to get there, because I'm asking God and trusting God to lead me down that path or to place a different desire in my heart. But I'm still going to list those things out. Now, this could be a big process for you. And if you don't get them all down at once, that's okay, because the things that you're going to think of quickest, the things that come to mind easiest, those are the things that you're obviously occupying more energy in your mind, right? So that's totally fine if you don't get all of those goals, but try to get as many as you can. Then I want you to think about the things that are standing in your way, those obstacles that even if you're getting past them, but it's still not easy. It's still a struggle to go through those obstacles that are getting in your way. Now, sometimes when we think about obstacles, we think about the external things, right? Like it could be a matter of time or the demands that other people are putting on you or situations that come up that you can't always control. So as you're thinking about those obstacles, I want you to also take personal accountability here and think about your own behaviors, your own habits that are keeping you stuck, and write those down too. And this alone, just identifying and having that personal accountability to say, man, I am really getting in my own way because of X, Y, and Z. Like I'm not able to stick to my health plan because I'm allowing myself to emotionally eat, or I'm not having a better outlet for my stress, or whatever it is. But just identifying that alone can be huge. So I hope that you are brave enough and have the courage to be able to take that personal accountability and look at those things that you are getting in your own way with. Okay. Now, once you have those things outlined on paper or on your computer, but you have them out of your head and in front of you, now you can set some limits for yourself. You can limit on how many days you make excuses to not work out. You can set a limit on the days that you work through your lunch. You can start with one goal or one area. It's going to be really up to you on what limits you set. But looking at those goals and looking at those things that get in your way, just think, what if I could limit these things, especially the personal accountability, those bad habits? If you could limit. Now, we're not talking about cold turkey stopping them or moving in a completely different direction. I mean, if you can do that, then kudos to you. Do that for sure. But sometimes these things are so ingrained and they're not always inherently bad. So for example, if you find yourself tired at night after work and you're like, I need to clean the house, or I need to work on these different projects, or whatever it is, but you just don't have the energy, maybe you just need to go to bed early and you're tired. Give yourself some grace, but maybe set a limit on how many days you're letting yourself take the rest and how many days you're limiting yourself to work. And finding that middle ground, because it's not necessarily inherently bad that you're tired and not getting the house clean. But if the house being clean is having a negative effect, or the house not being clean is having a negative effect on you, then that is something that we need to address. But being tired all the time is not cool either, right? So have that limit of saying, okay, I'm going to allow myself 3 nights a week to not do anything after work, but just to be with the kids, be with my spouse, rest, watch TV, and go to bed early. 3 nights a week. That's the limit of doing that. Now, if you do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, guess what? Thursday and Friday, you better get your booty off the couch and get to cleaning the house, because you owe yourself that goal of having that clean house. If you know that that's going to help you feel better, if you know that that's going to help you have more clarity and more sanity in your life, then you owe it to yourself to get off the couch and to set a timer for 20 minutes and clean your house. Do you know how clean you can get your house in 20 minutes? Especially if you turn on some great music. We have a Spotify playlist for music to play when you're cleaning your house. If you go to Spotify and you search Your Life Rocks, you'll find different playlists for worship and for cleaning your house and for working while you, or worshiping while you work. All of those playlists are there for you. But you can really make some traction for 20 minutes. Recently online, someone had asked me about chores for kids, and I said, we don't really necessarily do chores. Like, we don't do allowance and pay our kids to clean the house because they live here. I don't get paid to clean the house. My husband doesn't get paid when he does the dishes or takes out the garbage or, anything like that. Now, we do have things that we pay above and beyond for, because I want to give them an opportunity that if there's something that they want to purchase for themselves, that they have an opportunity to be able to do that. But there are things like organizing the garage, mowing the lawn, like they're bigger things. But doing the dishes or cleaning the toilets or vacuuming the floors, they don't get paid for that kind of stuff because they helped contribute to that mess. So I kind of feel like I'm then rewarding them for making the mess so that they could clean it up and make the money. So we set a timer as a family, turn on our music, and we all clean for 20 minutes. We did this last night. My older son cleaned the bathroom. My younger son dusted. I did the kitchen, and my husband kind of cleaned up some things that we had just laying all over the place from a long weekend, like on the dining room table and on our little buffet table. There was just stuff everywhere. So he was in charge of doing all that. But as soon as the timer dinged, we were done. We didn't keep going. So, the house got as clean as it was going to get in 20 minutes. And honestly, by 19, 18 minutes, it was like, okay, well, we have one more minute left. What else can we clean? Anyway, side note on that. Back to the topic at hand, setting those limits. So you'll have to ask yourself what those limits look like, and don't feel like you're married to them. You can always move them around. If you find a limit is a little too strict for you, loosen it up. If you find one limit is too loose, then you can tighten it up. This is your life, your limits that you're putting on yourself in order to get to where you want to go. Last point, I highly recommend that you start with one goal or one area of your life to begin with and try it for a week and see how it goes. See how it changes your results that you're getting towards getting to where you want to go. Don't try to tackle every goal, every habit, everything all at once, because that is overwhelming. And if you'll get overwhelmed, then you'll get even more exhausted and you'll give up. And that's the last thing that I want for you is for you to give up on your dreams, for you to give up on your goals and where you ultimately want to go, because there's a reason you set that goal. There's a reason that you set that intention. There's a reason that you want to work on growing in a particular area of your life, and you should honor that and respect yourself for that and not sell yourself short for something less. Because at the end of the day, limits are not necessarily limiting. Limits are focusing your actions on the things that matter most, and you owe it to yourself to go for it. Now, I can't wait to see what you do with this exercise. So send me a snapshot on Insta Stories or send me a DM on Instagram, post it in our Facebook group. I would love to hear from you. And of course, our Life Balance members, remember, you will have a bonus content from today's episode in our membership community. Now, next week, we are joined back with a very special guest as we are talking about igniting your faith in the season of life that you're in. I know you're not going to want to miss my conversation with author and speaker Tiffany Bloom. So if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit subscribe or download the Your Life Rocks app so you don't miss a single one of our upcoming episodes of Redefining Balance for Working Moms podcast. So until next week, keep building a life that rocks. Bye.